Since 2022, I'm running the Kunstverein Hannover in Germany, which is around 1.5 train hours from Berlin. And the Kunstverein is commissioning new works, showing international artists, among also regional responsibility for now almost 200 years. The institution is from 1832. And I started my program when I became director there in 22 with the first show in early 23 with a Ukrainian artist as well, which was Jana Kadyrova. And within the program of Jana Kadyrova, we actually had the pleasure already to work with each other because at one of the museum nights in town, we showed a very special piece by Yarema and Roman that is also presented around the gallery currently, which is called Explosions Near the Museum. And we will speak about that work later on a little bit. The work that is shown downstairs was part of a series of moved image works that we showed in the rooms of Kunstverein. The show was called In Absentia and was referring, of course, to this specific work of the Explosions Near the Museum, but also to others. And I think it also relates to the work downstairs pretty well. Many of you have seen these LED screens now that are installed on a wooden platform, and it's actually not fully silent work. You hear a little bit of movements, etc., but it's a loop as an installation. And the piece is called You Should Not Have to See This, and is of course in the title already pointing out very much the gaze and the question of the viewer's point, because we see something very specific. Maybe you tell us.
Yeah. Thank you. So, by the way, no sound.
No sound.
No sound. It's a completely silent piece, but I think just because people feel that, you know, they can wake up these images, you feel this presence of these small sounds, like the piece itself is about the children. All these images of sleeping children, these are not just, you know, Ukrainian children. It's not just some image of children at war. It's basically children who were kidnapped by Russia during 2020, starting from 2022. They were kidnapped, but later Ukraine, their families managed to bring some of them back home, and we filmed those few that are sleeping already in moderately safe space in Kyiv, in their homes. So yeah, it was sort of this idea was emerged because we didn't want to, you know, as I said, to portray just some images of war. We wanted to have like a documentation of these war crimes, something that could be attached, you know, to this person who was going through this, attached to these children, and that's why I think it's important for me to have that these children actually went through something, but it's also important that we didn't create an extra narrative, like an explanation, so you don't have any text or any other information inside of the work that explains where, why, when, what's their names, the families, and even during filming we were a bit aside, and I think from the perspective of documentary filmmaking, it's not pretty common. They usually try to attach to the person they're filming in order to kind of create this bond and this connection that will be later seen through the image. And we decided to go the opposite way. We just, basically had brief conversations with them, both with parents and children. Of course, we explained what we did, but the idea was, to have images to speak for themselves and not to create these fake connections, because neither me, myself and Roman have one with them, neither the viewers will have in the future. So it's, yeah.
I mean, there's indeed a very anonymous moment, because on the one hand, you come into a room, you see an installation of big LED screens, which on the other hand have a very close camera. Sometimes you are extremely close up to faces, to bodies, to, you know, the bed of a child. It makes people also partly uncomfortable. There's a moment of closeness that is actually too close. You have a feeling of voyeurism in a way. I mean, voyeurism being, of course, a psychoanalytic and also film theory concept that is, on the one hand, connoted to a sexual gaze, of course, and on the other hand, to intimacy per se. So the intimacy, the hidden, the forbidden, is something that I think one can feel pretty much so if you see in an exhibition space a work that is, even before you read the caption maybe, very close to children being safe in bed, or being waken up, or turning around, or just, you know, starting the day. And of course, we all know, you know, the prolific quote by Roman Khimei in Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema in '75: to look is an act of power, to be looked at is to be objectified. So the question for me is, how did you deal with this as artists? How did you discuss beforehand this closeness? Because especially with this vulnerable people of young age, and with this history of their trauma, how did you approach that?
I think it's important to mention once again the title, which explains a bit what you were saying and asking me. You shouldn't have to see this, and this is something that relates to both to more this concept of voyeurism, as you mentioned, and also this intimacy, but also on a broader scale, this war crimes that happen, this horrible, like, things that had never been done. But I think, I mean, it's in my opinion, and also referring even to regarding the pain of the others, Arendt's texts, the context matters, and I think in context of war, this intimacy level changes, and sometimes you have to negotiate between this the image that should be presented and the intimacy, or this intimacy that you shouldn't cross. And I think this, I mean, I still don't have a right answer whether we should do this piece, whether we should be as close to these children or not, but at least in title and through this I don't know, conceptualization, which is a bit, I think, not really in the work, but rather on surrounding it with the title and with some other conversations and text, we approached it. So it's still for me not clear, and I don't think even that, you know, Hannah Arendt made it clear whether, you know, these images should be made or shouldn't, or whether there should be some kind of some moral institute, imaginary moral institute that would judge what should be presented, how close you should come, and it's still there. This is something that I cannot really. Although, you know, I have this at least one step. I can make this one step closer to this to the cases of that these children went through, to this how to say, to the representation of this war crime. I can comment it because I'm Ukrainian. I live in Ukraine, in Kiev, and so there is some kind of an idea that through this piece, through this through these films, through these images, I deliver some information about the case, about this horrible crimes committed by a neighboring country.
I think there's a very interesting reciprocal kind of ping-pong of situation in a way. You have on the one hand some form of objectification, which always, as we know, is discussed through the camera for so long. On the other hand, there is, of course, no acting. You know clearly that it's basically a camera with a POV in a kid's room, also close to the bed. You probably had a certain distance and then zoomed in. But it has this, uncomfortable situation, and on the other hand, it's extremely sensitive, I feel, because the title makes it clear, of course, you should not have to see this, but we are witnessing something through not witnessing it. And I can at least tell for the Kunstverein show, we had extreme touching reactions from people to that work, especially because it is installed in that format of getting into a space. We decided for this, bubbly chewing gum, sweet color of this like blush pink. And when you enter first, you see there's a certain synchronization between, scenes in a way which are very calm, very quiet. So also you decided for going to a very slow pace. Then you read something about the fate of these kids without knowing or learning anything about the concrete fate of these kids. I think the interesting point is also, because I was asking myself for quite a long time, okay, what is this video installation in a way? Is it really this kind of, is it documentation as such? Because the format is pretty much of a question that you decided for, that you both come from a practice of studying cinematography, so you come from narrative camera. How did you, what is how do you see that in the work with Roman? There's a couple of works that have a narrative structure in a way, but they are looped and they are also working as an installation house.
I think it's, by the way, because we studied cinematography and not directing, we never really engaged with narrative that much. And narrative was always something that we never were really interested in. So we were interested in the image and moving image, but not like a narrative moving image. And so therefore a lot of our works rather break this, narrative structure or comment the narrative structure or work with the image as well. This work, you shouldn't have to see this. It's also pretty much about this stillness. What is like you barely see movements. So it's also engages with this idea of moving image and the stillness, movement, and this it's also embedded in these works beside the political and social context. The narrative, I don't know, I feel like in museum spaces, video can play this, can be a bit freed from this narrative structure, which is very much, I would say, conservative in the filmmaking world, and not, of course, everywhere. It's a completely different thing, but in museums we have this possibility to speak through the images to a higher degree, or how do you say it? Like we can use them and we can contextualize them way better than we can do it through a narrative movie or short film.
I was saying that because we had in the show also the work with the fallen soldiers, where you are yourself acting, but it's very much about the extras. It's not about the narration of a film, and you're recreating an image basically, right? Maybe you tell us about that one.
Oh yes, yeah, we had it was a first work at the exhibition. It was a piece called The Wanderer, which referred to series of photographs by Fast Reaction Group. It's a group established in Kharkiv with Boris Mikhailov and Sergei Bertkov and the last name of participant of that group. They were posing as if they were Germans, wearing Nazi uniform in Kharkiv in the 90s. And we found it very funny that there is this bit uncanny, weird situation that, you know, and they were playing around this idea of Germans, because in Soviet Ukraine and Soviet Union, Germans, it was equal Nazis. But then later in the 90s, it switched to Germans, meaning like a better life, you can go to. So they were playing with it, and then what we started to think about it when just after the full-scale invasion, we were in Ukraine, like a week after or something, or a few days after. We said, what does it mean if I were German now? And we saw that it's kind of a compassion towards Russian, or this idea of peace that should, you know, come around, so don't fight, like this pacifist idea, you know, this, the West tells these two countries on the side, like, oh, you guys fighting, this is, you know, we should be doing the peace, everything. We have some compassion to all the victims, both Russians and Ukrainians. It was just, I mean, now it's a bit different, I think, but at the very beginning, it felt like that, especially when you're inside the country and you hear all this news, all this, you know, talks about peace. At the very first days when Russians are invading your country and killing people, and you hear about peace and you don't feel comfortable with that. So we tried to somehow communicate that feeling through taking this idea of pretending to be Germans who are feeling compassion towards Russians, and we portrayed ourselves as if we are dead Russian soldiers on Ukrainian soil, to kind of feel how is it to be dead Russian in Ukrainian soul, like to feel to show this understanding, you know, understanding of your enemy, but in a bit subversive and, you know,
bit ironical
way, yeah. And necrophilic, probably.
Yeah, the scene is basically that you see a situation in the Carpathian Mountains. It's very romantic, very Caspar David Friedrich there, and you two are in front of the camera. One of you has a laptop that one never sees, and you try to reenact an image.
Yes.
You try to reenact the situation. So the two artists are basically pointing at each other, saying, you know, put the leg a little bit to the left, to this instead, and now hold still. So it's basically an arrangement.
And it was based on, we actually were, you know, referring to original images that were spread around the internet, and especially in the very first days of war, in some Telegram channels of these dead Russians. It was a symbol of that Ukraine is fighting back. So they were all over, everywhere in the internet. You know, we were so used to them that it was part of like everyday life to scroll through these images of dead bodies all the time. And then at some point, I think half a year after the war started, they kind of, you know, they started to blur them and then to take away because it was too much. But at the beginning, it was an important symbol that, you know, Ukrainians are fighting back. So it was normal. So, and these images were circulating everywhere. So we saved them, and, you know, actually we're trying to position our bodies in the same positions of these images. So it was a bit like this strange move that is, you know, definitely like, you know, uncomfortable for some viewers, also a bit maybe too aggressive, but I think it's important. It was really important gesture to at least to show that we can speak also from Ukraine in regards this, you know, global idea of peace and negotiation and everything. I even had one interesting conversation in Aachen during some public talk, and very interesting and smart professor, when I showed this piece, asked me, but isn't it that you, through this image, you still say, hey, stupid Russians, why are you coming to our land? Get out, or something like that. And actually, like this piece is it's rather about him who always attach Russians to every conversation about Ukraine. So it's always that you need this extra agent of Russian who will be in this conversation. But this work is, depicting dead Russian soldiers, but it's definitely not about Russians. It's about perceptions of Europeans regarding Russians, or perceptions or kind of the narrative that is always built about Russians, even though they're good or bad, it doesn't matter. It's always like somewhere coming back to them, and not about the, something else, something that leaves Russian agency aside. And,
yeah, I mean, you have clearly in that work and also the kids' work, there's clearly this term that I see popping up often in my mind about this of Yvonne Spielmann of the reflexive camera, of course, because it is a discursive one that always mirrors back, in the best Lacanche kind of sense. And another work that we showed that is also that we are also able to speak about, which is anyways a great format to speak about moved image without seeing any image. It's really much a great opportunity to do that is the work I mentioned, Explosions Near the Museum, because the explicitity or the question of, you were speaking about violent images or images of violence, rather, and the absence of it. I mean, both of these works that we just talked about have non-violent imagery. I mean, although you act as if you are dead Russian somewhere, you're still wearing your trekking clothes and you have a laptop next to you, etc. And the Explosions Near the Museum is a pretty much discussed work that is also traveling and parallelly shown in many institutions, that has some form of narration, but the narration is more a literal one by a voiceover of the curator of a museum in Kherson that was looted, and the camera is basically showing that museum right after the professional looting of the Russian troops happened. But maybe you speak.
Yeah, we showed it. We're actually showing it now at the Roman Khimei gallery, and we presented it recently at a gallery booth at Fries in London, and of course in the Kunstverein Hannover, but in a bit different iteration. It was a projection, but now we have it as a TV boxed into the and on the splints. So it's like an object that a video about emptiness, about this emptiness of Kherson Museum, which is in itself an object that is now traveling as a commentary on this case. And this, it's pretty simple. It's just almost still images with some panoramas spanning around of the Kherson Museum, which was looted in end of 2022, I think, yes. And we came there 3 weeks after, right after Russian withdrawal from south of Ukraine. And we filmed this basically a crime scene. It's a series of images, moving images that are going through empty showcases and these pedestals, so it looks a bit like some abstract compositions, some minimalist art or something, or institutional critique artworks from artists like Louis Lawler or Candida Höfer. Empty museum, nothing is there, so you then you start thinking about it. But it's actually, I call it, it's rather Russian minimalism, because they literally, emptied the museum and it became like something else. It became something, you can see this different colors on the walls because paintings were taken, and because of the sunlight they changed this.
It's a museum of lore.
It's a local lore.
With local formerly local goods, which we learn about because the voiceover is basically describing what we don't see. So the camera is running through very slow pace, through situations that I think remarkable because very few of them are kind of scenes of violence where something was broken, but it was really professionally installed.
Yes, and yeah, it's very important because people tend to think that during war, looting is something common, right? Soldiers are, on this no man's land, trying to enrich themselves, but that was completely different because it was planned strategic theft of a history made with FSB, this Russian security officers that came from Russia, and also they invited even museum workers from Russia to actually work on this project of erasing the history. So it was well made, not a lot of things were broken actually. It was clean, nice job, and they they stole the amount of pieces they stole ranges from up to hundred thousands of museum pieces. And Kherson region also have a lot of ancient Greek history, so they stole a lot of ancient Greek artifacts and Scythian gold, and the most strange parts they decided to steal is also, but it's symbolical theft, I think. They stole this different artifacts from Second World War, which don't really, cost anything, like some grenade or some casing from machine gun that you can even buy on eBay probably for $100. So it's not really worth anything, but this idea that they stole only the section of history, by the way. The geology and paleontology section was there, and even one aquarium with Ukrainian fish was the only survival from this.
I think you wanted to speak about one further piece, though.
Yeah, I will just briefly mention this another work which is also linked to displacement. Like with children, you shouldn't have to see this. We have this abduction of children by Russia, and later they return. But in the other work, we spoke about. We are showing this kid who is he's 18, like a teenager who left Ukraine when the war started, and we decided to, and then, like a lot of others, teenagers, families that left the country, and you feel it in the cities that not that many people are living here, and this problem of displacement, and also some tension even between Ukrainians who stayed and who left. It's always present. So we decided how should we deal with that, and we contacted with militaries, Ukrainian military, and they gave us this robot dog, this system that is now in use in the army. They try to implicate somehow in the combat, but they're not really succeeding with that, actually, I must say, because it's still it's not that good as drone that you can fly everywhere, but still they're using it in reconnaissance, I think. But we used it in a different purpose. We gave the remote controller, we established this remote control through the internet, and we gave it to the boy that is now living in Poland. And he was able to remotely speak through it, control it, and hear everything from this robot dog, which was sent to his hometown, Zaporizhia. And his avatar was trending around the city, meeting his parents, friends, just random people in the streets. And visually it looks like rather a video game stream, because we had this robot running around the city, and we filmed him from the third-person view. And in the corner next to it, we have a small screen with web camera which was of course synchronized. Web camera of this boy who was, you know, making all these silly jokes and basically, you know, coming back home. And this strange shift that happened really interests me because it's not really a real homecoming, but that's something additional to, that's not just a video call with your mother. It's, you can actually move because presence cannot be distributed, right? Everything can be now mediated through images, through video or audio, but like you are not free to move anywhere. So this is the most crucial and important part of this whole tension that happens because and decisions behind those who decide to stay or to leave. But in a way he was there, you know, he was actually there. He was having this strange conversation with mother when he said that I don't really want to come back because I'm already here. And she was really, really upset with that. Of course it's a part of a silly teenage joke, but I mean, he was right in a way. He really, I mean, I don't know, maybe 5% he felt that he is back. I don't know. And we showed it, we premiered it at Ljubljana Biennale, and we will show it in Venice next year. So yeah, if you'll be around, come over to this. It will be presented at this Pinchukart Center.
Increasingly also featured in shows on video platforms, many of which you can also look at on the website of both of them. I think
yeah, I have a question. Thanks first of all. When I saw the installation downstairs and I had like spent some time and I saw on the left, on the biggest screen, I think it was the biggest, another child, I think it was, trying to wake up the child. So how do I have to imagine the whole setting? Do you leave the cameras and let the families interact with them as they wish to, or because this was something that really grabbed me, and I thought, like, okay, why is this happening? And it's a funny situation because we know young children, they just really, they sleep very heavily sometimes.
Yes.
So it's, yeah, but it's, yeah.
There is a very practical answer, reason behind this presence of another girl in this shot. We tried to wake up this kid, and we didn't manage it by just screaming and, you know, saying wake up. It didn't work. She slept so, you know, deeply that it would be strange if I would be like grabbing her and shaking.
Yeah.
So we had this other girls next to her, which is actually on a small screen. This is the same girl that was on the small screen. So we asked her to wake up. So, and then, you know, she started to do it. So, yeah, she started to wake her up. It took some time, but she finally managed it. And yeah, that's pretty simple. And yeah, the way we filmed it, we just set up the camera, and we didn't, at the beginning, we didn't really knew how should we proceed, because we thought, okay, we don't want to fake it. We don't want to fake that these children are sleeping, but they're actually not. It's not the way we work. So we, but apparently when we set up the camera, turned it on, they fell asleep maybe in 5 minutes, all of them. And it just happened like that, which was really, we were really surprised. And yeah, so it took us, I don't know, an hour to make it happen, and we used these excerpts. Each of these screens, duration is 7 minutes 30 seconds, and the last 30 seconds probably they are waking up. Yes, so it was, I mean, surprisingly very simple process, and we set up this camera and went, you know, to speak with their parents, and then came back a few moments later to wake them up, and that was it. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah, thank you everyone.
And you mentioned that the show. Yeah, you said the show. So I mean, it's completely okay to say that we have this upcoming show at Thyssen Bornemisza in Madrid, a solo show where we will show this work with children and open world about this robot dog and the new commission. And also we will present a new piece, a new commission at this next edition of series of exhibition organized by Fondazione Between Art Film. And the last ones were called Nebula and Penumbra, and there will be a new one called Canicula. Yes. And yeah, so that's like something that is upcoming next year. Thank you.
Looking very forward. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.